Hey, good morning to you. It's Daybreak at iFiber One. I'm Jeff Slakey. Got another great guest in studio today, talking North Mason Regional Fire Authority, Jeromy Hicks. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you doing, Jeff?
I am well. Nice to see you in here on a Tuesday and checking in on things happening at the North End. And I know you recently, and for folks who may not have even been aware, Belfair has a wonderful holiday tradition annually with the tree lighting and the parade. And how did that all go off? And tell me a little bit about it.
Well, it kind of coined it the world's shortest parade. It really is short, but it's a start. It's year 3 or 4 of it. It starts at the Hub Center and goes into Belfair there and McClendon's. And each year it's getting bigger and bigger. We get more community groups that are marching in the parade. It originally started kind of to showcase our high school bands and teams and peewees, and bring in that kind of community pride. And Susan Odette down there in North Mason has done a wonderful job orchestrating that, and it's turned into a good event. We had the tree lighting is December 3rd, I think, that Sunday, and parade kind of starts at 3, and then they all march down into the McClendon's parking lot, and just before 5, Santa arrives on the fire truck and lights the tree. So a lot of people there.
Good. Well, we'll put that on the calendar to be sure for next year to remind folks. What brings you in today? What are some of the winter tips that we may be missing and need to pass along to folks? And
well, I gotta, like, every time I come in here, I gotta say, change your smoke detector batteries.
That's right.
You gotta, right now, get up, walk over to your smoke detector and change those batteries. We are still seeing house fires across the nation that are causing major injuries and even death because people don't have a smoke detector. North Mason Fire, and actually for that matter, most of the fire departments in the county give away smoke detectors for free. You show up, they won't even give them to you free. They will come install them in your house
Isn't
for
that
free.
something?
And we don't have them yet. It's just amazing how we're still seeing all these deaths around the nation.
What do you think the barrier is on something like that?
Well,
It's just time? People say, well,
I got to tell you a funny story. We not a funny story, but we give those away for free. And about 5 years ago, we said we're not going to give them away free unless we install them.
okay.
Because we would go to houses, and people would get them at, we'd have these booths at McClendon's or Safeway or, community events, and we'd give people away 4 smoke detectors. And we would literally go to their house for some other reason, aid call or helping them with an emergency, and there'd be 4 smoke detectors stacked up on the counter in the boxes, not even open.
Oh, yeah, no, that I was meant to get to that.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's just they get them, it's a great idea, and then, we don't have the Phillips screwdriver, or it's too tall, we don't have the ladder, or how does the battery work, or where do we put them? And we've done a really good job in the fire service across the nation of educating people how these things go in. I think it's just the time commitment now, which is astonishing to me. I think I have 100 of them in my house. My wife is just baffled at how many smoke detectors we have in our house.
One that's beeping.
Yeah, exactly. And then the new thing obviously is carbon monoxide detectors. Those are, and they're required. If you're selling your house, your real estate agent will say they're required before you sell the house. So you're gonna have to install them anyways. Might as well do it now and while you're in the house.
Yeah.
So that's my big thing. I guess I always got to start off with that. And
that's a good one.
I wanted to bring up space heaters again. This is kind of the time of the year where everybody's using space heaters, not only in their RVs to keep their RV pipes from freezing when they're not in there, but in their house to just kind of take that morning chill off without running their whole HVAC system. And I was looking at some statistics here earlier this morning, and between 2009 and 2013, there's 56,000 structure fires in the U.S. caused by space heaters, just space heaters, and just about 470 deaths occurred because of that.
Wow.
And I think the main reason we're finding now with those fires is when you buy the space heater, you go to a store and you're like, well, this space heater is $20 and this one's $50. So I'm going to buy the $20 one because I don't use it very much. Well, think about that. You don't use it very much, so you probably should buy the one that has all the extra safety features in it. And that's usually what you're paying more for. You're paying for the tip resistance, so if it tips, it shuts off. You're paying for the internal thermostats or thermocouples that if it gets too hot, it shuts off. The breaker switches, all that extra stuff that comes with those more expensive type of heaters. Their safety features is really what they are. And we have houses full of kids and dogs and cats and adults that trip over these things and don't even notice it.
You said the other day, last time we were on here, folks have a nice, beautiful open space in their living room that nothing is ever there. And then 2 months out of the year, there's a tree there. Mm-hmm. And, oh, hey, let's put the heater right next to this living thing that dries out very quickly.
Yep.
And
let's expedite the drying process by putting it next to the floorboard heater. And that's what happens, because you have, in a room, you don't normally have this tree. And you're like, well, look at that big open space. We should put it there. And then you forget that you have the heaters. And I think last time, I don't remember if I covered it, but your baseboard heaters will turn on. Even though you have the thermostat all the way down, thermostat's not off. It's just down. And usually it goes down to like 30 or 40 degrees. If your house gets cold enough, that baseboard heater will kick on. And I think that's a kind of a new thing for people at home that have these baseboard heaters. Of course, those aren't found very often, but the same thing occurs with your cadet heaters too that you have. The thermostat doesn't always shut it all the way off. If you really want to shut your heaters off, the breaker is what you need to do.
It's just a really low temperature threshold that you're setting it to.
And you can still trigger that to come on. So,
is there a certain heater that is maybe more dangerous than another? I'm thinking in my mind's eye of those old kind of, they look like a trash compactor. It's basically a rectangle there with the grill versus the new parabolic heaters that they have.
Like the oil-filled type heaters.
Yeah, or even the electric ones that have kind of the mini satellite dish looking thing to emit the heat. Do those, if they get tipped, do they all turn off at the same rate, or is there one that seems to be a little safer than the others?
Well, I think that really depends on the manufacturer, because you could find those big round ones and they could have tip protection or they can't. Fortunately, in the United States, we have a lot of regulations that require that UL listing on these heaters. Yeah. Sometimes some sneak through that don't have those safety features. So I always tell people to try them out or read the box. Make sure it has those tip features. Now, the old ones, I would say 15 years ago, so old. It's not that long ago.
Sure.
You would find a lot of those heaters that didn't have tip protections. I remember, growing up, and they had the old square box. It almost looked like a toaster, laying on the side with all the metal wire in there. And boy, those didn't have tip protection at all. They just fall over, or you could stuff stuff in there, no problem. Now they're really getting good. If you tip a heater over, it's been on, it shuts off almost immediately if you get the right one.
I remember the first time I got one with the tip alert. It really startled me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was on and we were just moving it from one, picking it up and just moving it like just around the edge or something, and it buzzed at me. But boy, that'll key in real quick.
Well, and a lot of people use them in their houses under a desk. They'll put them under the desk because they're cold and the heat doesn't quite get there, and they'll forget to unplug them. And that's the other big thing. Just like the thermostats on your baseboard heaters and your cadet heaters, those have thermostats on them too. So sometimes if you don't actually turn it off, you just turn it down to low. If the house gets cold enough, it will kick back on. So unplug those when you're done with them. That's a good idea.
I was talking to, this is changing gears here a little bit. I was talking to Sheriff Salisbury yesterday, and you came up. We were talking about you, and he mentioned some great things about you.
Wow.
Reserve Academy.
Yep.
Go through all that training. Fire Marshal. So you have arresting abilities. If you see somebody, what are some things that you look for, or how busy are you in that respect? Especially now here in the wintertime, you see things that people shouldn't be doing.
With fire, arson,
any of the stuff that you also look at, putting on a different hat there with the fire department. Arson's
one of those crimes, and that's the one I specialize in. I don't specialize in any of the other criminal type stuff, but it's a really hard crime to prove. So when you look at a fire, you have to look at what the intent of the fire is. Are these devices there, these heating devices, these cadet heaters, these, and I use cadet generically, but baseboard heaters, was there candles? what's the story that happened in this house? You know, holidays are a very stressful time for everybody. So I think there's statistics that show that crime or the kind of these domestic violence types crimes occur more,
Yeah.
which could relate to more fires, because that is a domestic violent type fire. One spouse doesn't like the other spouse and they don't live in the house anymore, and we're gonna commit this crime.
Wow.
So that stuff happens. Mason County, we're pretty fortunate. We don't see a lot of that. In the fire realm of what we deal with. Fires, we run 55 to 60 fire investigations a year, and there's a threshold for how we investigate fires and what type of fires we investigate, but that's kind of what we run right now. It doesn't mean that there's only 55 fires in the county. There's only 55 fires that meet this kind of, we need to call an investigator. Chief Mike Patty is another investigator, great investigator with our county. He works for Central Mason Fire. And then we have Captain Heinrich, who's part of the investigation team. Great investigator, too. He's out of Mason County Fire District 11. So we have three good investigators in the county that go to these calls, kind of depending on their geographic location and their availability.
I'm reminded of Robert De Niro's character in Backdraft.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a good representation of a fire investigator?
No.
And how do you and how do you determine if the whole house goes up or if there's very little evidence to walk through? How do you determine where the fire begins?
Well, that's a very complicated question.
I'm sure.
I don't think we have enough
We
time
only have
on
about a minute.
We
so
don't have enough time
no.
on Daybreak to talk about that. But I think the big misconception in fire is fire consumes everything, and that's not the truth. What you have to look for in a fire is not what's missing; it's what's still there, and kind of paint the picture backwards. Accelerants leave marks. Accelerants leave smells. Accelerants leave patterns. Walls that are burned on one side more than the other shows that the fire direction was moving this way versus the other direction.
Interesting.
So it's just a different way of looking at it. I have friends that do wildland investigation, and my hat's off to them, because that's there's 40,000 acres.
Yeah.
And they're able to figure out how the fire started. I don't, ours is always contained to a house, but
for
these
sure.
guys are amazing. So it's just a different learning way to do it.
Isn't that something? Well, again, a bottom line, as we bring this back full circle, it is an important time now. There is more heaters, more candles, more people in your homes. So make sure your smoke detectors are up to date, batteries are changed, and what's it, 10 years on smoke detectors and 5 years on carbon
Correct.
monoxide.
And if
Change
you need a
all those
smoke detector,
batteries.
call me. I will find you one.
What's the phone number?
360-275-6711. It's on our website. Central Mason Fire also has a very comprehensive website for smoke detectors. Call my buddy Chief Patty over there. He'll help you out through that process. But let's get smoke detectors in your house. There's no excuse for it.
That's a good thing to move to the holidays, and a strong New Year's resolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Resolve
Today
to
resolution.
That's a day resolution. Thank you, sir. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
And
Thanks,
I will
Jeff.
check in with you again next month. It